Hey there, it's Lara here. Welcome to Witchy Wednesday, your astrology forecast. Now, normally I do these forecasts for the week, right? Wednesday to Wednesday. This one is going to span 2 weeks because I am taking a bit of a break just from the videos because I have catching up to do on other things, including readings. I'm also going to take a bit of a break from readings in the month of August. So if you order a reading from me, you can still do that, but just be mindful that it may not get to you until sort of later August, early September even, because I have a lot of other stuff going on that needs my attention right now. And so that's where I need to focus. And if if I get a chance in there to have some, a little bit of kind of downtime, then that's the plan. So thanks for your understanding with that. But I'm not going to leave you hanging, because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cover this, so July 24th all the way through to the 6th. And really, there's one major event that is the focus, right? So that's what we're going to speak to when I go through each of the signs, which will happen in part 2, because I know it will be a two-parter this time, because I have a lot to talk about in the intro. So, we are spanning 2 weeks here. And then what I'm going to try to do is, at very least, address the other moon. So there's a new moon happening. That's the big event here, July 31st in Leo. And then we've got a full moon happening later in the month in Aquarius. And then we have another new moon at the very end of August. So August is technically a 3-moon month, because some folks won't experience this new moon in Leo until August 1st, depending on where you live, right? But so anyway, that's what's happening. I encourage you to come join me on Facebook and on Instagram, because I will do more regular updates there. And if I don't get a chance to do videos here, I'll at very least post something there, especially, for lengthier things. Facebook is kind of easier. You only have so much room for text, allotted on Instagram, and so much time for a video. You only get I can't remember what it is, like 60 seconds or whatever. But but nevertheless, follow me there, and you'll be sure to get some updates, because it's a lot sort of quicker and easier to do that when I'm in a time crunch than it is to do these videos, right? As much as I love them. But I've just felt that something's got to give over this next month for a little bit. And so this is one of the things. All right, enough about that. Let's start, as per usual, talking about where the moon is at. So we've got the moon, as I'm recording this, it's entering Taurus today on July 24th. And then it will move into Gemini on the 27th, Cancer on the 29th, and Leo on July 31st, where we have that new moon, right? On either July 31st or August 1st, depending where you live in the world. We've got what else do we have? Oh, the moon's moving into Virgo on August 2nd and into Libra on the 4th. So that's as far as I'm going to go with that. Hopefully, I'll update you again around that time, kind of thing, August 7th or so. So before I dive into all the things that are going on, I want to say, of course, a thank you, a heartfelt thank you. It is Leo season, right? To everybody who's joined me here on my YouTube channel. Slowly but surely, it's growing, and I do appreciate that. And it's really appreciated, those of you who take the time to send me a message or leave a comment or like the video, or subscribe to the channel. And if you hit that little bell that you see under the video, That's the notification bell, and it will ensure that you get notified when I post a new video here. So I think that's about all I want to say. Of course, reach out to me on my website if you're interested in a reading. I've been telling you that some changes are happening there. That's part of what I have to address over this next while. But you can always do that, right? Reach me there. And the link is below. I always post the link below these videos. So, okay, let's get into talking about what's going on over these next couple of weeks. The first thing I'm going to talk about is Venus. And something that's going on with her for the next couple of weeks. And that's called Venus is going combust. That's what I want to talk to you about. So what that means is Venus is getting very, very close to the sun. And when that happens, right, when any planet goes right close to the sun kind of, in a sense, swallows up the energy of that planet, because the sun is more powerful. And so, and then you can't see the planet, right, in the sky. So Venus is known as the evening star after she moves past the sun. So up until now, in the year, we've had Venus as the morning star, meaning she's visible in the sky, kind of just before the sun comes up, just at dawn, we can see Venus in the sky. And then once the sun rises, right, the sun's rays kind of block out the light of Venus. So now Venus is moving very close to the sun. Like I said, the word for that is combust. And around about August, like mid-August, around the 14th, we will start to see her again, but this time she will be in the evening. So she'll be known as the evening star because she's past the heart of the sun, right, where she's been invisible. She will be invisible for a time. And then coming back around, she'll move out of the full rays of the sun, and we will be able to see her again. And we'll be able to see her just at dusk and, the twilight time of day kind of thing. So that's all well and good, but what does it mean, right? What does it mean astrologically? Well, it signifies traditionally that, as you heard me mention, she loses her power at this time, right? Because the sun is kind of enveloping her. And so traditionally the view is that the energies of Venus may be less of a focus for us, right? So, or they may hit a bit of an uncertain patch, shall we say, right? Because you can't see her. So, and the energies of Venus are our relationships, love, money, resources, values, worth, this kind of thing, beauty. So that's the traditional view. That the energy of Venus is sort of sapped or sacrificed to the greater good. Or I would say for the good of kind of fully expressing the energy of the sun, the sun in our chart in particular, or wherever this is sitting at the time. And the sun is about our core. It's our core self, right? It's our consciousness. It's our ego. The sun rules the sign of Leo, where he's sitting right now and at full power. So this is about our individual self-expression, right? And so to me, it's more that it's a time when that is highlighted, and the focus, to put this simply, I see it as the focus is more on kind of self-love, right? Venus has traveled to the heart of the sun. She's not visible externally, but she's still there, and she is kind of, I see it as almost like soaking up that power of the sun for herself, recharging her own batteries, so to speak. Focusing on her own desires, own self-care a little bit. And think about that. When we do that, we come out the other side refreshed, rejuvenated, better able to give more love, right? To the outside world and to the people around us. So it's not necessarily the popular view, but this is the way I kind of see it, and I kind of interpret this energy. So maybe that resonates with you. So that's what's going on in terms of Venus. Now, Venus is a focus at the time of this new moon, and I'm going to get to that. But the focus may be more on sort of the self, right? Our own heart's desires, so to speak. So I'll break that down further when we get to that piece. But moving on now, on July 27th, well, still talking about Venus, but she is moving out of the sign of Cancer and entering Leo. And she's joining Mars, who's already there, right? The sun, who's already there. And eventually Mercury will join all of those other planets as well. So it's a big old party in Leo that's going on, right? I spoke to that in last week's video some as well. So Venus will be in Leo until August 21st. And then on July 31st, we have several significant things going on. The big thing is that new moon. We're going to talk about that in more detail in a minute. But the other big thing is Mercury is stationing direct. So on the day of the new moon, right, at 8 degrees of Leo, that's where the new moon is happening. Mercury is stationing direct at 24 degrees Cancer. So we'll start to move again through those latter degrees of Cancer and then eventually re-enter Leo, right? And covering ground, this is the third pass of the ground that Mercury has already covered. And so I was thinking, it's like third time's a charm, right? That phrase. So I see this as it's a time of getting some clarity, of getting maybe really those internal messages. When Mercury goes retrograde, one of the things is this time for going internal and kind of hearing the messages from within. And so perhaps a time of beginning to put those messages to use, right? Or getting some clarity, or getting the final missing information that we'd been seeking. It's also, when Mercury stations direct, it's a shift in perspective, right? Because it's changing direction. Again, not literally, but from our perspective here on Earth, it's changing direction. And so it's a shift in our own perspective. So that's what happens around the time of a Mercury station. So I'm going to dive into the Mercury retrograde because I did that a few videos ago. And if you're interested in hearing that video is there for you anytime to watch. And so with, this being, with this happening at the same time as the new moon, it's significant. It's also significant. Sorry, I just have to pull the cord out here because I was charging. Okay, and the camera doesn't like that when I record the video when it's plugged in. So anyway, it's significant that it's happening, that the Mercury stationing at 24 degrees Cancer, because we've had other things going on at that degree, or that range of degree as well. Not the least of which was an eclipse that happened at 24 degrees. And I believe it was 24 degrees actually Capricorn opposite the chart, but this 24 degrees of the cardinal signs, right? So Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, Libra has been kind of getting lit up. And I've mentioned to you before that I have an exact conjunction of Venus and Saturn in my own chart at that degree of Aries. So feeling it over here, definitely. But let's talk about this new moon and what is happening in relation to that. alongside that, that is having an influence on the new moon. And I'm going to show you the chart shortly, but I want to go through these pieces first. So the new moon happening at 8 degrees of Leo on July 31st at about 11:12 p.m. And that's Eastern Standard Time, right? So you can adjust for your own time zone. A quick reminder that all new moons are a time that the sun and the moon come together in the sky, right? That divine masculine, divine feminine energy come together in the sky to birth something new. So it's really this blending of the masculine and the feminine at that time, right? At the time of this new moon, there's a very fiery chart. That's the focus. There are many planets in fire signs, right? And that energy of fire is very yang. It's very instinctual, inspirational, creative, focused on our desires, our wills, our passions. It's also quite playful and optimistic, a bit of an adventurer, right? And also a leader in some ways, or a pioneer. So in Leo, we're going to have Venus, the Sun, the Moon, Mars, and asteroid Juno, all in Leo at the time of this new moon. So as I said, lots of Leo energy. We also have Mars trining Jupiter at the time of this new moon, right? So Mars, that the planet of our action and our drive and our will, trining is a supportive conversation, a conversation of ease and flow. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, of wisdom seeking, of luck, of optimism, of growth, right? And so it's kind of this boost of action, of positivity, of energy, of optimism. And, you know, it's thought that when you start something under this influence, it's likely to be successful. So that's good. But it's largely because you kind of have the willpower and the positive outlook, right? To make it happen and to make it successful. And so, you know, use this power for good, right? Not for kind of greed or gluttony or selfish means. Use good judgment when you're using this energy. And the likelihood is that will be the case because it's a trine. But of course, free will, as I say all the time, free will, we get to decide what and how we will respond and how we will use these energies that are presented to us, right? So that's our own choice. We also have the new moon conjuncting Venus, right? So right beside Venus, because the sun and the moon are together at the time of the new moon. So it goes without saying that the moon and Venus would also be together. So again, drawing attention, right, to love, resources, values, worth, beauty, money, these kinds of Venusian things. Perhaps a new chapter in a relationship or new developments regarding any of those things. But as I said, with Venus being combust, right, moving to the heart of the sun around this time, there could be this element of kind of self-focus going on at that time, as a possibility anyways. I would also say, you know, just it may be good to caution or watch for emotional spending, because that could be possible with the moon and Venus in close connection. What else do we have? We have the dwarf planet or asteroid, you know, depending, it's called all kinds of things, but Chiron trining this new moon as well, right? So Chiron, the wounded healer. You know, and that tagline or nickname says a lot, but it doesn't say everything about what Chiron does. But for ease, you know, Chiron is known as the wounded healer. And Chiron is in Aries right now, as we know. And it's trining this new moon. So this is like, when Chiron's in Aries, I will remind you, the overall focus is about the healing of our identity in some way. And this is the long haul journey of Chiron right now through through the sky and through our charts, moving through Aries, wherever Aries sits for us in the chart, right? So we may have some kind of new or renewed action or passion or optimism for healing our identity, right? And we have some support for this with Chiron and the moon trining each other. We also have the new moon. Obviously, when I say the new moon, I'm talking about whatever's going on with the new moon. So the sun and the moon, and we know Venus is right there as well, squaring Uranus and Taurus. This is significant. This is a significant piece of the puzzle at the time of this new moon. So Uranus is the liberator, the awakener, right? Uranus shakes things up, shakes up the status quo. So there may be some sudden surprises, insights, happenings, news, breakdowns, breakthroughs. You hear that phrase, those words associated often with Uranus, or some kind of experimentation with a new approach, right? Uranus is a bit eccentric and likes to do things a different way, a new way. And so there may be that element brought in here. And that is all centered around these themes that we've talked about, relationships, money, values, beauty, our emotions in some way, because the moon rules our emotions, right? Our emotions, our feelings. And this is all, in relation to wherever this new moon is happening in the chart for us. So we have these bigger themes, but then it's sort of directed for each of us to the house that the new moon energies are happening, which is what we're going to talk about in part 2. So Uranus can bring a little, anxiety, nervous tension sort of thing. If we're not choosing to embrace whatever changes happen, or if we're uncomfortable with changes that need to happen ultimately for our own growth. So it's really kind of good advice to try to be open-minded and flexible during this time, because that's really what Uranus wants from us. It wants us to have this new perspective, right? To try new things, to break free from our routine. It wants to liberate us in some way, right? And so if we resist that, things tend to be a little bit more difficult for us. It can have us craving these things too, liberation, freedom, right? So, feeling like we need some kind of big adventure or change moving forward. So I will say that this isn't the best energy necessarily for making, impulsive decisions or taking impulsive action in terms of our relationships, our money, making any kind of drastic beauty changes or beauty altering decisions right around the time of the new moon. Because those things might be kind of short-lived or later regretted. Sleep on it for a few days, optimally even a couple of weeks, when Mercury leaves its shadow sort of thing, and Venus is out of that, the heart of Venus is out of the heart of the sun and reborn, right, as the evening star at that point. So then revisit it, right? That doesn't mean you shouldn't take any action. Quite the contrary, under all of this Leo influence. It is a time of connecting to our heart's desires, our inner child, our true passions, all of those things, and taking some action there. But I'm talking more about things that, are potentially kind of impulsive, that may impact other people or you negatively in some way in the future, right? Taking risks is not a bad thing under this influence at all. In fact, it's kind of what this energy wants you to do. But it's like calculated risk. It's like risk that is driven from a core desire, right? Not risk that's driven from frustration, anger, just being completely, fed up. Or not risk that is driven from, delusions of grandeur, or arrogance, or thinking that you know better than everybody else. Because on the shadow side, sorry, I have an eyelash here. Leo can have that tendency. So that's not optimally what we want to harness here. We also have, we have so much. I hope I even have enough time to talk about all of it. I think I will, though. We have a lot of stuff going on with the asteroids as well. So I'm going to pause here briefly to show you the chart, and then I'm going to break down those pieces. So here's the chart for the new moon on July 31st in Leo. At 8 degrees Leo, right? So there's a lot going on here because I have the asteroids on this chart too. But let's begin the obvious place. There is the moon and the sun beside each other at 8 degrees Leo. There is Venus approaching, right? The heart of the sun. There is Mars just past the sun moon. And there's asteroid Juno that has just entered Leo as well. Okay, there is Mercury in Cancer about to station and start moving direct and eventually re-enter Leo. Of course, we have the North Node hanging out there long-term in Cancer as well. Here we've got Uranus in Taurus. Remember, I said squaring this new moon, right? 90-degree angle. There's asteroid Vesta in Taurus. We're going to talk about her. There's Eris in Aries. We'll mention her. There's Chiron in Aries, right? Trining the new moon, like we talked about. Of course, the ongoing pileup in Capricorn, Saturn South Node Pluto there. Jupiter in Sagittarius still retrograde, but pretty soon going to station direct, and that's going to be kind of good news. And then asteroid Ceres in Sagittarius, and asteroid Pallas, Athena, in Libra. So, the asteroids, like I mentioned, aside from everything else I talked about, are having some significant conversations at the time of this new moon. You can see Athena and Eris in opposition here. We've got Juno, that is, what's happening with Juno? Squaring Vesta, right? Squaring Vesta in Taurus. And then we have also Pallas Athena, squaring Pluto as well. And Vesta's also squaring Mars, who is down there around the new moon as well. So all of that is going on. Let's break those pieces down. Oh, and I also want to mention to you, here's Neptune in Pisces, right? There for the long haul, hanging out there, generally making some, supportive conversations for the most part here and there. But it's kind of like Neptune is kind of, I see it, it's been the backdrop for a while in some ways. This kind of like, he's kind of hanging out there, right? Over in Pisces, kind of like going, hey, hey man, chill. It's okay. Everything will all work out, even if you can't see that right now. And lending us some compassion, some connection and guidance from, spirit, these kinds of things. So we know that Neptune always also has an association with delusion, seeing things through rose-colored glasses, being a bit escapist. And so there are those tendencies too, but ultimately he's trying to be his best self and help us at this time. And so those are good energies to tune into. All right, let's talk about the asteroids in a little bit more detail. So I said to you that Juno in Leo, right, is squaring Vesta in Taurus. So Juno is the asteroid that speaks to partnerships. And all aspects of partnership, right? Of like close partnership. So including loyalty and jealousy, but also, our kind of devotion to partnership in a way, and our partnership duties, these kinds of things, right? Some people call Juno sort of like the energy of the wife, and that's not. I'm not using that as a gender specific term, so please know that. But so this partnership asteroid Juno is squaring Vesta, right? Vesta is all about dedication, devotion, sacred service to something greater, to a higher cause. Vesta is about being whole unto the self, about not necessarily needing a partner, not being in partnership. So this can bring some tension into whatever we might have going on in our relationships at this time, right? How we take care of that which is sacred to us, and be in partnership simultaneously or not. But I mean, most of us are in partnership at some points or in some ways. So it's a significant piece of who we are, right? How we relate to other people. So I see this as kind of like this tension between how can I maintain my sense of self or autonomy, and be this, loyal kind of partner as well. And so we may have some stuff going on with that. Or is that what I ultimately want? Or do I want to move in one of those directions or the other? Remember, a square requires some kind of action to resolve the tension, right? We also have another square going on with Vesta and Mars. So Mars, action, passion, drive, right? Will, squaring Vesta, who I just spoke about. So it's like, how can I get my sacred work done? Whatever I consider my sacred work. It's this energy of the drive to be devoted to something that's important to you, right? I think of the Eight of Pentacles in the tarot. This image comes to mind when I'm speaking about this, which is this person who's really focused and dedicated to the work that they are doing, right? To study, to whatever they're learning. It's really important to them. They're very devoted to it. It's sacred work. And so I kind of see this energy as this square, right? So again, how can I get my sacred work done? And then we've also got Asteroid Pallas, who I spoke about in last week's video, I think. So she is this archetype of the wise warrior I think I used the association to the character Wonder Woman. That's sort of Pallas energy. And she is squaring Pluto, right? The big boss, Pluto, who is Lord of the Underworld. It's kind of his nickname, right? And Pluto is an energy. Pluto's the ruler of Scorpio, right? Ruler of the 8th house. This energy of Phoenix rising. And so these two energies in combination or in square, in tension, it's like wisdom surfacing from the depths, Pluto, right? And then us mustering the power to rise from the ashes. So this kind of dynamic. It can also be the dynamic of, the wise warrior facing off with some kind of power struggle, which can be Pluto as well, in some way. So I could say a lot more about that, but we don't have time for all of this. I'm just giving you these key themes, and hopefully it will spark some insight, and you can take all of these things and see examples of this playing out in the world around us. Like what just popped into my head was, this in Canada, there is a major travesty going on with our Indigenous peoples having access to clean water. And so there are some people, a lot of them women, right? These wise warrior women rising up to take on the establishment and to take on the power structure there. So that's just one example. And kind of in that same vein, we also have Pallas opposing Eris, right? So Pallas in Libra opposing Eris in Aries. And I've spoken about Eris several times in past videos. So this is Pallas, the energy of the wise warrior, right? That the Amazon woman kind of thing, versus Eris, the frustrated, pissed off feminine that wants to be seen and heard. So this is an opposition. So it is bringing those two, it's asking us to bring those two things into balance, to balance those things in some way, right? So using that sort of frustration to act in powerful but mature ways, right? Wise ways. And this reminds me a bit of Erin Brockovich. I don't know how many of you know the story of Erin Brockovich. There's a movie that came out years ago where Julia Roberts played Erin Brockovich. It's a true story. But if you've never seen the movie, go watch it. It's pretty cool. And again, there's the theme of water that I just spoke to, which, that was not intentional, but that's what's coming through. But there's a theme of water in this movie as well, right? That big Neptune in the background kind of thing, or the North Node in Cancer right now as well, that water energy. So calling for our attention, right? And so this Erin Brockovich energy, that's optimally how we want to embody this energy of this opposition of Pallas opposing Eris. So all of that is, of course, being filtered through or connected to the energy of Leo and this new moon that's happening on the 31st. Connecting to our heart's desires, our inner child, and liberating the Uranus piece, our authentic selves, our unique selves, right? And allowing our authentic selves to shine through, right? It's like authenticity or bust at this time. Really, that's what's going on. And those folks that have planets and points in the early degrees of the fixed signs, so around 3 to 13 degrees, give or take, particularly around the 7 to 9 degree mark, are going to feel this new moon energy significantly. But the cardinal signs have a lot going on these days too. The mutable signs might feel it perhaps in a bit of a less intense way than others, but nobody's really out of the loop on this one, okay? Nobody. We're all feeling it on some level, but I want you to realize that it's an empowering time. It's actually quite an optimistic time. It is a breath of fresh air, or a, lighting a fire under our ass after the time of these eclipses that we've just been through, right? Oh my gosh. And the energy of that is still reverberating. But all of this Leo energy around the time of the new moon and everything that's happening that I just broke down for you in relation to that is calling us to embrace our heart's desires, be our authentic selves, connect to our inner child, all of these things, right, that I spoke about. And so ultimately, this is it's a good new moon. It's not without some challenges, perhaps, but again, that's all about how we choose to respond. So I am going to leave that there, and I'm going to move on to the next video, part 2, where I'm going to go through each of the signs. I'll give you a little blurb at the beginning of, kind of what you're, just to refocus you, what you're listening for, what the potentials are here in relation to each sign. So thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate it. And I will see you again, fingers crossed, in a couple weeks' time, at very least with a quick update. I will do my best. But in the meantime, make sure you come on over to Facebook and Instagram, or one or the other if you have a preference, and join me there so that you can get more regular updates and stay in the loop that way and connect that way. Links are below. Happy new moon in Leo. This is a time for celebration. I didn't say that, but it is really a time for celebration, whatever that means to you. Okay? And I'll catch you in part 2. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.